One round, one crown. Some people love it, some people hate it. Today I'm going to share my opinions on this Fall Guys show format, which is now infamous. For those that don't know, I'm Fall Guys Moose, and this is episode 3 of my Discussing Fall Guys series. I'm glad you're here today. So, before I begin to explain my feelings on the one round, one crown format, let's first dip into the history a little bit. In June of 2023, Fall Guys ran a crown chart scramble, similar to those they've had in the past. The only difference is, this time, 5 crown shard rounds, where everyone could win, counted as both a finals appearance and a win when a player simply qualified. This means that on top of the 5 crown shards, typical for a round like that, the player also received another 46 for a total of 51 crown shards just for qualifying a simple, typically easy race round. Of course, this had major implications on what people refer to as the crown economy, which we'll get into more later, as now everyone could essentially get 1 crown for free just for qualifying a simple race round. Now, just kind of as an aside, I have some screenshots here of myself and some friends at the finish line of one of these rounds. Also, here's a photo I got of this goose laying down. Clearly a lazy guy, he's supposed to be qualifying, and he's just laying there. And finally, here's a cool screenshot of 2 pink pirates in the same photo, as well as the canned pirates, if you can believe that. It's pretty cool. But anyway, whether you loved this or hated this, one definitely can't deny how fun of a time it was in the community. I mean, it was just mad. Everybody was flooding to these race rounds. Everybody was playing. Twitter, I remember, was active. I mean, it was just pandemonium. And as evidenced by this photo, you can see it was a big deal. In any case, whether you thought it was fun or not, there was one incontrovertible fact, and that's that everybody was getting crowns at the time. And I mean everyone. Even newer or less experienced players could get 51 shards simply for qualifying a race. For this reason, I have no issue whatsoever with this format. There's a ton of fun for everyone, everybody was getting crowns, emoing together, and ultimately just having a good time to start the summer. But this was only the beginning of the one round, one crown format as we know it. Because once this crown chart scramble ended, one thing still remained. There were still race rounds that included 4 participants and 1 winner. And the reward, 1 full crown. Indeed, Fall Guys as we knew it had changed, and now players could win an entire crown for 45 to 60 seconds of a given round. You can see my round of choice playing in the background here, Fall Speedway. To this day, I don't think there's another round I played more, and honestly, I don't think there's another round I hate more, simply for how much I played that freaking round. But in any case, this trend continued. When the old batch of 1 round, 1 crown rounds went away, the next came in. We got rounds such as Broken Course, awesome map, Floorless, Tower of Fall, and so on. And to be straightforward, these rounds were far more controversial than the 5 shard race rounds of before, because now only the best of the best could win. The course was much more difficult, and frankly a newer player had absolutely no chance of beating a more advanced player. Personally, I saw tons of Marvelouses, Golden Dragons, Golden Knights, and so on. I even saw Stentric, and just throwing this out there, I did win, so yeah. But the point is, if a new player queued in one of these lobbies, they had no chance whatsoever to win. Now, many people had a problem with this format. Sweats could simply grind for hours at a time and literally win, say, 70% of the time, netting them anywhere from 10 to 16 crowns per hour. Winning these crowns still took skill, as many sweats were playing, so the competition was very decent, plus the rounds required at least some proficiency to navigate. But the problem was, people who had grinded solos or limited time modes to gain large amounts of crowns in the past were now watching people easily gain dozens and dozens of crowns simply for qualifying from a single race. And this presented an issue: the value of crowns. And that brings us to the key point of this video, in my opinion. What is the value of a crown? My answer to that is simply whatever the player thinks. Personally, I value my crowns. I happen to think 3,600 is a good amount. Heck, I even think 2,000 is solid. Now, full disclosure, I was able to gain a good amount from the one round, one crown rounds earlier this year, but the fact is, these rounds still took some skill to navigate, plus there were plenty of sweaty players also playing these rounds. And more importantly, everyone had access to the same rounds. So if a player chose not to grind those rounds, or they weren't good enough to win, then that was on them. Plenty of players saw their crown count go up quite a bit, but so did other players. This means that, in theory, since everyone had the same opportunity, the relative value of a crown couldn't have diminished. Sure, certain crown ranks don't carry the same clout as they used to. In fact, one might argue none of the crown ranks matter. In fact, I joke Golden Chicken is the new Beanbot, but I digress. Frankly, who cares? As a side note, Fall Guys does need to add new tiers or unlocks for crowns anyway, so what's it matter? In totality, my point is that the value of a crown is all relative, and crowns are not like money, say in real life, where, the more that's available, the less the value becomes because they're not a currency, right? Crowns are only relative to the player themselves, and they're not spent, or there's no market that's actually directly affected by having more crowns. And just a quick aside, before I move on, I actually do believe a player's crown count relative to how long they've played is, in fact, a solid indicator of their skill. It is a fact that the more one does something, the more proficient they become. So it would follow that the more somebody plays Fall Guys, and thus the more crowns they get, generally speaking, the better they get. Ultimately, this conversation is relevant now because, of course, one round, one crown rounds have returned, so the discussion has been sparked again. Honestly, what would be nice was if they were flooding the crown market while planning to abolish the current crown rank system and somehow add in a new one in the near future. Kind of like everyone can get their rewards now before we get rid of the current crown rank sort of thing. And I think 3 years into the game's lifespan, this is absolutely due. We could get new golden skins, new emotes, faceplates, colors, and so on from the new crown rank system. How exactly they implement this will be a topic for another day. In any case, I really want to hear your thoughts. This is a discussion, not a lecture, so please feel free to comment what you think about the one round, one crown system, and overall your thoughts on the so-called crown economy. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Neither? Either way, let me know. I thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.